Welcome to USA Football's Coach and Coordinator Podcast, where top football coaches from around the country share their stories, philosophies, concepts, and strategies to help you get better on and off the field. Now, here's your host, Keith Grabowski.
Hey, coaches, before we get going today, I just wanted to thank you for all you've been doing to support this podcast, and we have an incredible lineup coming up here. We have just about every major college conference represented. We have a ton of FBS coaches, Division II coaches, Division III coaches, some great high school football coaches coming on the podcast to share with you and help you grow professionally during this time. I really appreciate all of you asking your questions on Twitter. Please follow me at Coach K. Grabowski for our daily updates on our guests and your opportunity to ask questions. We will read them on the show and attribute those to you. So please contribute to the show as much as you can. I also want to talk to you a little bit about our football development model, which is something we've rolled out here at USA Football. And this is really for you to be able to help your youth football programs develop. It's about a long-term athlete development plan. It's something that comes off of the American development model, which is something that the USOC has put together. The idea is that we're able to teach skills in a progression starting at the youngest ages. We're also looking at the different game types we have, whether that's flag, which is non-contact, limited contact games like padded flag or tackle bar, and full contact, and the right progressions for contact teaching there as well. Be sure to check out all we do at footballdevelopment.com and check out what we're doing with the FDM, the football development model, at usafootball.com/FDM. usafootball.com. On today's podcast, we definitely have a first in that we have identical twin college coaches talking to us. One of them, Woody Blevins, right now is the defensive coordinator at Division II Assumption in Massachusetts. And the other buddy is the offensive coordinator at University of Western New Mexico in also a Division II school. So, Buddy, Woody, I'm going to apologize because not only do you guys look the same, but you sound the same. So I'm going to try to make sure this is not confusing. But, first of all, welcome both of you back to the podcast. Second time for both of you, first time together.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be back on.
All right, so I'm just going to direct questions to one of you, and after he answers, the other one certainly can add on to that. And it's really going to be about this shared experience and how this has worked for you guys, growing up through the coaching profession together. And so let's go back to your days in starting and playing football, Woody, and talk to me about what it was like to have an identical twin and just both from the competition side of what's going on in the field as well as, having your brother out there and maybe at times having his back as well.
Oh man. I don't know that I have a really great answer for you. I will say this though, we definitely did have each other's back, the entire time, but it was also, I'll say this, there was a ridiculous amount of competition between the two of us. I think that's what ended up making us better players, and we achieved much higher than our athletic ability would lead you to believe. And I truly believe it's just because the two of us were constantly trying to kind of one-up each other or trying to beat each other. Or, you're running sprints, you're always checking where the other one is. If one wants to go throw passes, the other one has to do it, or they know that they've got to step up on each other. So, there's just no way around it. And even though we had each other's backs, a lot of it was because we got to see what the other one put into it. You get to see your teammates and what efforts they put into things, but you don't get to see every single effort that they put in. So when one of us was successful, I think it made us even more excited. I mean, I remember my brother's first touchdown in college. I forgot to go out on special teams afterwards because I was so excited. I forgot to go out on kickoff. He scored a touchdown. It was first one. I was so excited. I was so pumped. It was the only time I ever forgot to go on the field for a special teams play. But I hope that answers your question well.
Yeah, no, I think it gives us some good insight and just to Again, that idea, as I said, that the competition but having each other's backs. Buddy, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, there's this one specific moment that really comes to mind. And I think it did make us better players, but also really prepared us as coaches on the mental side of things and strategy-wise, specifically. I remember this. We were doing this one-on-one, and I knew by his stance he was going to one-step choke me. And which was, I knew their techniques because I heard him talk about it all the time. And he had a pretty good idea that I was going to release outside, I think is what it was. And I remembered that, because I knew what he was about to do, I, dramatically changed my release. And I used a seam release, and to try to beat him. And then I remembered when I got to the top of the route, I knew that if I leaned, he knew I was going to break the other way. So I leaned and then gave a head fake the other way. And he, of course, undercut me like I was running a dig, and I ran an out wide open. And I was like, I remember after the rest, I was like, what just happened? That's never going to happen in a game. We just played this entire chess match because we knew each other so well. You know what I mean? We thought so many levels ahead. And I was like, at that point, I was like, we need to stop going against each other. This is getting ridiculous. This is no way, there's no way this actually translates to a game. But but it helped us, we're competing at such a high level, but it really helped us think about things when we're going against each other, on the field. So, we definitely had each other's backs. It definitely helped us as players, but I think it also really helped us take a step towards, thinking about the game cerebrally, while still players.
Yeah, Woody, I hear you had a comment in there for that rep.
Yeah, this is for the record that I remember that distinctly, and that's still BS. Or else never going to happen. I would agree with that. I was like, what? I just put all this thought into this, and this would never be ran in a game, because I would never have to think as far ahead in the game. But I won, so we'll just put that there. All right.
Well, from there, guys, moving to where you played in the college level, you guys were at Drake and Colorado Mesa, and Buddy, I think you were the first to make the move to Mesa, and then Woody followed along. But talk to us about, again, just that experience, and I'm sure for both of you, at some point there during your college playing experience, there was maybe that discussion starting about wanting to get into coaching. So talk to us again about the playing experience together at the college level, making the move, and then where this started as far as, hey, we're going to be coaches.
I think that first of all, making the move to Mesa. I think Drake it's an expensive school. Iowa's really cold, and that only takes you so far, I guess. I mean, I was just ready for something different, and I'd met a great receiver coach, and I really liked the head coach from one of my visits, along with the OC, who we both talked to all three of those guys still, and it was a no-brainer when I went out there. It was beautiful. It was warm. It was just all around better. And then, I think Woody, decided to, after a while, he was, I need to look elsewhere. And so he came with, and, I was like, dude, just come check it out. You're going to love it. And he did. But once we got there, we were really blessed to really come in contact with who was the offensive coordinator at Mesa back then, John Boyer. And he was at Northern Colorado as the OC after that for a long time. He's at Oregon State now as an offensive analyst. And his approach to the game was so detail-oriented, and we both really were endeared with that, and really, were like that, really about that as players. And on top of that, we were blessed to have some great high school coaches that really infused that passion to help kids, especially one named Jamison Allen, who we're still in touch with to this day. And so it was kind of on track for us, but then actually, we were going to coach anyways, thanks to Coach Allen, instilling that in us. But then once we met Coach Boyer, that level of detail that college provides, that we were both hooked, And I think that this is Woody now. I followed Buddy to Mesa. And I think Buddy hit it on the head. I think we had a great head coach, Coach Donnie Holmes, who was the receivers coach. We had met previously at a camp, a football camp when we were in high school. We used to go work at it as like a counselor, if you will, in college, called Stump Mitchell's training camp. And Stump Mitchell is now with the Cleveland Browns as the running backs coach and run game coordinator. But what Stump and Coach Holmes and another mentor, Coach Flowers, what they all gave us was specialized knowledge. So, once we started to get towards the ends of our career and we had the right mindset from Coach Allen to build better people, and then we meet guys like Coach Boyer, who shows us the systematic and detailed version of coaching, and then you have the specialized knowledge from Stump and Coach Flowers and Coach Holmes, guys who are NFL coaches and NFL players. You have the specialized knowledge now that I think it was like really the only path that you could take. We were actually both in the secondary education program, and we both got our taste of teaching, and we were like, I don't think that's the path for us. So we continued and pushed on and dropped our secondary ed and both got a history degree, and we ended up coaching, and Buddy ended up playing after college in the arena leagues and bouncing around the AFL and, what was formerly the Arena 2 and so on so forth. But, it was really just the coaches along the way that taught us what it was to develop young men. And we always had this drive. One of our friends told us this, a quote that we live by now. We call it lift while you climb. You got to lift while you climb. You got to bring somebody else to the top if you want to get there. And, that really took hold in us. And Coach Boyer and all those other coaches, led us into, our profession now.
I love that concept, lift while you climb. Buddy, I think it's worth certainly you adding to that and your thoughts just on that concept of lift while you climb.
I think especially nowadays, man, I think, in the coaching world, it's so cosmetic now. Everyone wants, in the terms of like how they present themselves on social media, they all have their sweet little graphic with their headsets on. And, it's become very like guys self-promoting, and putting that really at the forefront, and quote unquote, making connections, and we really, and when it comes to lift while you climb, we want to bring people along with us. That's really where the real connection is actually helping people, calling to help somebody with a job, or better yet, helping your players become better people so they can help other people. You know what I mean? If they're not aware that they have the power to help other people, whether it's via football or whatever, whatever career field they go into, they will have the ability to help people. And, making them aware of that and that to think like that is, I think, very central to being a college coach. When you're coaching in college, you're really at the decision point of what type of man these kids are going to decide to be. In high school, you help build, them as people. Like, we've definitely had some influential coaches, and you get ideas. But then in college, you actually have to do it. And as a college coach, you kind of swing them that way, or not swing, but you can really help build that platform to set their trajectory for the rest of their lives. That's what happened to us in college. Very directly with guys like Coach Boyer and Coach Amon, our head coach, and Coach Holmes and Coach Flowers, and so I think that's where that really comes into play. We want to help not only the players that we coach, but also the coaches that we're around and that we now as coordinators have to coach. That's part of being coordinator. So we want to be based around that idea.
Let's talk about that move into coaching. So you're the first one into coaching, and again, kind of sticking with that lift while you climb idea. So I'm sure at some point Buddy's comparing notes with you and trying to figure out his path into coaching. So Woody, how did you, I guess, being the first guy into coaching, I guess, help Buddy along the way as well?
Well, I think it's sort of, I wouldn't say that I helped him or he helped me. It's a give and take all the time. So, while he was playing arena, I actually got on at University of Northern Colorado as a volunteer. And they didn't have GAs back then, so they really just had volunteers. And that story is a story for its own time. But to make a long story short, I ended up there as a volunteer. I coached there in the spring while Buddy was playing arena football. And then after that, after he was done, he was looking to finish his degree. So he actually came out to volunteer at Northern Colorado with us. And at that time, our offensive coordinator from Mesa was the offensive coordinator at Northern Colorado. So Buddy comes along, volunteers. It was actually Buddy, myself, the assistant director of facilities, and his girlfriend all in a 2-bedroom apartment in Greeley, Colorado, trying to live as cheaply as humanly possible and working as much as humanly possible.
And Buddy, thoughts on that from your perspective, and what it was like for you then to be able to make that move?
It definitely made it easier because I had someone that I obviously knew me inside and out that understood like what was going to be demanded of us and what to expect. And we both were student assistants at Mesa after we got done playing here and there. So we had a little bit of experience, but the Division I level is different. And at that time, Coach Collins had hired a lot of coaches that were from the FBS level. So they were trying to throw some FBS expectations with a staff of 50 people on 3 volunteers, So really being able to, him understanding what they wanted and how to navigate that, was huge. But, it's been collaborative, but he's kind of like, we've both kind of taken steps ahead to help each other out. He was the first one to really get to that Division I level and then kind of help me along and show me the ropes. And then I was actually the first one of us to become coordinator. And I was able to, he was calling me when he got to Assumption about, well, when you install, what do you think, and that kind of thing. And so we've just been able to help each other and seesaw back and forth, and like you said, bounce ideas off each other and keep sharing and growing.
So I have to ask you guys, and we didn't mention, but not only are you identical twins, but there's a triplet, a sister, and she's not in coaching, but I guess if she was, then she'd probably have to be the special teams coordinator, just so you guys fill out that whole coordinator set. But
that's right.
So, I'm thinking, the holidays, everybody's home. Do Buddy and Woody wear everybody out with a football talk at the table and ideas going off each other?
It just depends. We kind of go to our own little, our own cocoon, like there's a room up in our parents' second floor, that has a TV in it, and that's really where we talk our ball. But I will say this, both of our wives are sick and tired of us rewinding TV or a football game so that we can watch what coverage or play it was. I can't stand it anymore, so they usually take the remote from us when we're watching games over the holidays.
I live in that world as well. I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And this is Buddy speaking. But yeah, that's the truth. We kind of just go up there and they know we'll just kind of disappear and all right, don't bother us. We have football to talk. Anyone else that comes in will be ignored. So we don't really kind of bother them as much. Maybe if we're watching all a game together, our family's big Oklahoma State fans. So when we're watching maybe the OSU OU game during Thanksgiving, then they'll hear it and be like, this guard screwed up this pull or. And so they're like, okay, we don't care. We don't even know, you know what I mean? They just want to organically watch the game, so. But other than that, not really, I guess.
Yeah, it's the eyes of a football coach. I know it's funny, the other day I had a friend of mine who, he's got a tech company in the sports space, and he wanted me to look at his I guess, demo video, right, to show coaches exactly what his product is. And said, hey, could you give me feedback on this? And in the middle of the feedback is, I hate the left tackle's block on that power play. That's the stuff, you guys start looking at film and everybody's just trying to watch the game and getting into the excitement of it. And you're like, rewind that. Let's take a look. What's always interesting to me is, once I've had a guest on the podcast, I kind of become a fan of that coach and follow them. So I think, Woody, when I first talked to you, you were at Northern Colorado, I believe, the special teams coordinator at the time. And Buddy, I can't remember the progression for you, if it was Fort Valley State or Oklahoma Panhandle, where you were at first when I talked to you. But I know you guys both had a place in the interim. Oh, Buddy, where were you when we talked the first time?
Oh, man. So I was at Oklahoma Panhandle State, and and I was there for a year, and then I went to Trinity International University in Chicago, and then I was at Fort Valley State last year. Now I'm at Western New Mexico now.
And then Woody, you were, and maybe I missed a place in the progression, Northern Colorado, and then Hawaii, and now at Assumption.
That's right. Just Colorado, Hawaii, Northern Colorado, then to Hawaii, and then Assumption.
You know, a question about the movements along the way, and you guys mentioned, like, first to get to the FBS level, first to become a coordinator, et cetera. So as you guys have made these moves, and we'll start with Woody. You had one place in between where you are now, but I guess things that you were able to learn yourself in this coaching profession, and then pass along to Buddy as he's progressing through it as well.
Gosh, that's a really tough question because, you got to remember, we literally talk every day. I would say it's hard for me to remember, the one thing I'll say is maybe recruiting. I was the first one to be full-time and recruit, but that wouldn't necessarily be true because he was at Midwestern State at the time and he was still recruiting at the same time. But I would say, for example, I think the best example that I can give you of how it's so intertwined. So we both believe in building people first, students second, athletes third, something that's through and through our veins. And I remember we were going to help clean up the tornado after maybe the 2014 season in Moore, Oklahoma. I'd flown down to Oklahoma, and we went down to help clean up the tornado, one of the really bad tornadoes in Moore. And I'm down there, we're driving in the car, and we're talking about personal growth. And I had this, what I thought was a great idea of how I was going to build better people. And we're talking about this thing. And Buddy's like, well, what are you doing right now? And I was like, what do you mean? Well, it's summer. We're not doing anything right now. And he's like, don't you think that's the problem? He's like, character development is the most oversold but under-delivered part of coaching. And don't you think it's like an issue that you're not doing anything right now? And I remember it was like a punch in the face, like, oh my gosh, he's got this way more figured out than me. But I took that, and that's when I built, I ended up off of that. I built a 12-month character building program, academic building program. And so that way each month I had what they were getting better as a person, as an athlete, or as a person, as a student, and as an athlete. Does that make sense? So that way I systemized it, but I couldn't have got there without Buddy, and he wouldn't have said that if I wouldn't have been where I was. So it's like this weird, we're like both climbing the ladder at the same time. Sometimes he's one rung ahead, sometimes I'm one rung ahead, but that's the best way I can describe it. I guess he hit the character thing. I'll hit the football side of it with, we've been in kind of different types of spots at opposite times. When he was in Northern Colorado recruiting, really I started recruiting a ton at OPSU because we had, Panhandle State's a rough spot. Coach Gaskamp, when he's my head coach there, he's really been the only coach to actually win there consistently ever. It's impossible to keep kids, so we were having to recruit crazy amounts of human beings every year. And, so it's kind of like recruiting on crack, and then compared to, Woody at UNC, they're going to sign 15 kids in a class. Like at OPSU, one coach might sign 15 kids. So it was different types of recruiting, and hearing his side of, really buckling down on 5 guys, hoping to sign 2, and really getting to know them, to talk about things with them and know their parents, compared to me where I'm like having to, say yes and no to kids quickly off of film and talk to kids within a few sentences. I know if they're even going to be close to a fit, how to like really quickly, cut ties with kids or build relationships with kids or, decide which way to go is a unique, those are both 2 unique qualities when it comes to coaching, that depending on the type of program you're in, and you're really going to need to know how to do both. Right now I'm at a place where kids stay, and you're only going to have to sign 5, 6 kids, you know what I mean? from, I guess, the gist I get from our staff. You're not going to sign a massive quantity. And now he's, in a place where he's signing more kids than he ever has. So now we're kind of flip-flopping, skill sets. And because we both talked about each of those skill sets, now we're, more ready than we would have been to handle a new recruiting skill set. So, yeah, like he said, it's just we're both climbing the ladder, and it's just one rung, back and forth.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique thing, and just that imagery of how you guys are climbing the ladder and pulling each other up, I think is so powerful. And you seem like guys who are constantly looking at and trying to figure out, okay, where's the next area I need to develop? So, Buddy, for you, what is that right now? What things have you really been working on in terms of your development as a coach? I've been studying offense for so long, obviously, but one of the blessings to have an identical twin that, is super, is really built around, consuming new defensive knowledge is, I'm trying to get on the new pages for defense, because the reality is the offense made a huge step forward with the RPO. And then I will say, actually, they took another step ahead of defense with all the window dressing now. The new, shifts and motions, Matt Canada really had a big influence with everybody. Man, he's dressing things up so many ways to run the shovel pass. You know what I mean? The power shovel pass. And he's killing people with it, and, I think that really influenced football, just like the RPO did. And then I think defense got stuck, they're trying to play quarters, and that's where the RPO came from, just picking that apart. But now the defense is taking steps ahead, even though offenses, I don't think, realize it. I've gotten to see that from, Woody and all his mentors, and kind of sitting, and I was fortunate to sit on a few of their meetings, being where I was in Georgia. Guys that are really ahead of the curve, they're doing things that I don't see a lot, but I'm starting to see more of. So I'm really starting to gear towards, the new defensive trends to try to, fight them off, if you will. So that's really where I've kind of gone, is looking at those new trends, like all the different ways people play match quarters and things like that, and rematch, and because things are changing defensively, and the old RPOs and the window dressings are not going to be as effective as they used to be, especially here in a year or two when they're more widespread. Yeah, I mean, you always hear coaches say, "Oh, well, if you get a chance, coach on the opposite side of the ball." And I don't think that we had to, because every single day I talk offensive football every day. There's not a single day that I don't talk offensive football with my brother. And there's not a single day that he doesn't talk defensive football with me. So it's this constant clinic that's going on. Imagine if you could clinic with a coach on the other side of the ball every single day. I mean, that's what we've been doing for a decade now. The thing that's interesting to me, and certainly you guys have it a lot easier because, I mean, you've grown up together, intimately how the other one thinks about the game because it's been part of the daily conversation. But, and I can't remember what coach I talked to here in the last week, but, he had made a point you want to continue growing in this profession. You got to find somebody, outside of your conference, outside of the maybe even region you coach in that sees things a little bit differently, maybe has different things happening, and, constantly be able to, form that relationship where you can go back and forth. And, whether it's a guy on the same side of the ball, opposite side of the ball, the point being, having that kind of a network where I don't think you guys have probably the most unique network in each other that nobody can match, but to have a network that allows you to be able to do essentially what you guys do every single day. Thoughts on that, Woody?
Well, I couldn't agree more, and I think that whoever you were talking to makes a really good point, that you have to get outside of people that think the same way that you do, and that's the blessing of having a twin that's on the opposite side of the ball, is that Buddy will connect me with offensive coordinators and offensive coaches who think opposite of him, and I'll connect him with defensive coaches who think opposite of me. I have two good friends at Mercer University, Joel Taylor and Mike Adams, and Buddy would go clinic with them, but he had that connection through me, and vice versa for me. So it's super interesting that it almost, I don't know if I would say it doubles our network. I mean, maybe it does, but it allows us to plug in to coaches that are totally opposite of us on opposite sides of the ball.
Yeah, Buddy, anything additional on that from you?
Yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, it really just doubles our network. And, you know, you kind of hate to admit it when you're a twin, but we're the same. You know, we're different, but we're the same. And then as much as it kind of hurts, you want to be your own individual. Like, once you just kind of accept it, it is what it is. But, you know, when we meet each other's connections, like, all he'll do is send a text, hey, you know, my brother wants to come by, you know, you'll know, I mean, you obviously know him when you see him. And then we meet that mutual connection that I don't know, but Woody knows. And then they realize we're like so similar. It's, you know, to them, it's comforting. You know, they don't really feel like they're getting to know someone all that much new, you know, so it really doubles our network. And, you know, so I would agree with them. You know, any connection I make becomes his connection immediately, really. All I have to do is ask, and vice versa.
Yeah. So, Buddy, to wrap things up here, you know, as you step back, and you guys certainly as twins, there's that special connection, but you step back and you look at what Woody's been able to do in his career and, you know, the direction you know he's going, what makes you most proud of him?
I really love his 12-month plan that he's made. Obviously, he's a great technician and knows his scheme well, you know, and really, like, he's really taken a lot of steps ahead of me, you know, that have allowed me to kind of catch up, but I had to learn from him, you know, with the intricacies of the defensive line and really the offensive line at one point, really. But his 12-month, you know, character building plan, like, man, like, you know, part of, you know, being at the NAI schools I've been at and then the lower funded D2 schools I've been at, you know, they're not as organized, not very much help. So I don't really have the structure to enact as, you know, significant of a plan, but, you know, that thing is so detailed and so well thought out. I've mirrored like sections of it at times I could, you know, but I'm like a little envious of that plan. I thought that thing is freaking awesome, you know, so that I've been really proud of him with that.
Woody, for you, what's made you most proud of Buddy?
Oh man, I don't really know where to begin. Buddy has a way with words where he can say it very efficiently, and he has this way about him that he makes like a really huge impact. And he's everywhere he goes, his stuff works. You know, he set the NAI record for, you know, passing yards in the game and passing touchdowns in the game, and, you know, he set records. He was up for, you know, coordinator of the year last year, and he's never taken control of somewhere that's been a successful team. And wherever he goes, his offense and his players not only love him, but they all succeed. I'm super proud that, and hopefully that I can be able to learn from him to do that myself. I think about it almost every single day. Like, I don't know any other coach that makes chicken soup out of chicken as well as he does, and he's winning chicken soup contests. It just blows me away every day. So I'm like, it's funny, like, now I'm back eating, I'm trying to be as good as he is at being a coordinator, and it's because I'm proud of him.
Well, I'll tell you both, you know, the lift while you climb idea and philosophy certainly came through in this conversation. I'm excited to see, you know, what you guys do here in the interim between now and maybe the time we talk again. But it was great being to sit down with both of you and have this conversation. It's definitely a unique one, and I think one that our listeners will get a lot out of. So, Woody, again, thank you. And just real quick, so our listeners can have it. Number one, areas that you recruit and your Twitter handle where they could get a hold of you.
So we're still working out our recruiting areas at Assumption College because we've had 3 coaches turn over within the last month. But I should be in New York, definitely Westchester area. But I also recruit, you know, my typical areas in the Midwest, just as a side recruiting. But I should be up there in southern New York for now.
And your handle on Twitter?
And my handle on Twitter is at Coach Woody, the number 2. So at Coach Woody 2.
And Buddy, for you, the areas you recruit and your Twitter handle?
I believe I'm going to be recruiting both Phoenix and maybe parts of Tucson or vice versa. We're still figuring that out. Being the last OC here was the recruiting coordinator, so we're trying to figure out where I fit, that kind of thing. But that's really our two main areas anyways. So we're all going to have pieces of Tucson and Phoenix, and then the California junior colleges.
And your Twitter handle?
And then my Twitter handle is Coach B_Blevins 5.
Guys, I want to thank you again for taking the time and joining me together. And for both of you, best of luck as you guys continue to climb.
Well, thank you for having us. Awesome. Thank you.
Coaches, again, I want to remind you of what we're doing with the football development model. Please push this down to your youth coaches. I think this is a great way for you to get some organization and structure beyond what you've already done. Check it out, all of our program development for youth football at fdm.usafootball.com. Again, check out our systems for blocking, tackling, and defeating blocks at footballdevelopment.com. If you register with your email, you get your choice of 3 free videos. There's some great things in there. I think things that as you get going again, you can get into the summer and maybe make up on some things that you might have lost if you had a spring ball, if you had time here in the spring to work on football. Some great drills for all those phases of contact. If you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes or your platform and give us a 5-star rate. If you have a minute, write a review. We really appreciate it, and we will read your review on our highlight show that we do at the end of the week.
Thanks for listening to USA Football's Coach and Coordinator Podcast. For more resources, visit the Coach Performance Center at usafootball.com.